week, including an astronaut reunion, but welcomed our largest ever undergraduate class this year, just over 33,600 students, and 17,000 of those students from the state of Indiana, our largest number since 2013, and 10,900 graduate and professional students. So at 44,500, this campus is the largest it's ever been, and we're excited about that. We also celebrated record research funding as well this year, over $500 million, and we just want to say thank you to you and the other members of the legislature for your continued support of Purdue University, especially this year, the facilities projects, the Gateway Project, that's really going to help us expand our College of Engineering and the Polytechnic Institute, which was going to help us continue to meet demand for talent in the STEM fields in our state. And of course, we're thrilled to have the funding for our new veterinary hospital for the College of Veterinary Medicine. And you've been thanked by some important members of the College of Veterinary staff this morning that had 4 legs. So we appreciate again the support for what we do. So we work hard here to be good financial stewards of the funds that you allocate to us, and the funds that again are part of invested here by parents and our students. As you know, affordability is a front and center focus for our president and our board. And the most tangible, I think, evidence of that is the fact we've held tuition now constant for 8 years. So just to close, this is a place, it's Indiana's land-grant university. It's a responsibility we take very seriously to help provide talent to our state, human talent to our state, to be really a driver of economic development and activity. And ultimately, really, to try to help lift the lives and livelihoods of every Hoosier. So it's important to us, and we just want to thank you and acknowledge the support you provided to help make that happen. We're glad to have you on our campus, and certainly wish you a very productive meeting this morning.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And for the committee, let me just specifically say we appreciate all the hospitality of Purdue and the tour we had yesterday. I mean, not only Purdue, but also Amazon and Subaru and GE Aviation. Very enlightening of all the hard work that's being done in this community. So very enjoyable day yesterday. Thank you. The meeting will officially come to order. The minutes of the last meeting have been distributed. You have the minutes of the July 2019 meeting. Are there any amendments to those minutes? Been moved and seconded, approved July 2019 minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. You also have the minutes of walk around of August 1st and August 16th, 2019. Are there any amendments to those walk around minutes? Can I have a motion to move? Second? Second. Been moved and seconded to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. There is a proposed agenda that has been distributed and released to all members in the public. Are there any amendments to the proposed amendment agenda? I would like to propose there is a Indiana Finance Authority item that will be added related to a federal grant loan program, and it is also specific to at least a couple cities in the state. It is no state money involved. It's federal grant money, but it raises above $100,000 that we have to look at. $100 million, yeah. To look at. Can we add that to the agenda under a review item? Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Any other proposed amendments to the agenda? The agenda then is set on the table, and we're going to be moving forward. We're going to take it one bit of difference of the proposal because of somebody's schedule. We'd like to have Dr. Sullivan, who has some time commitments elsewhere, I believe, is going to do a review item under the Healthy Indiana Plan phase-out payment. Is that correct, Dr. Sullivan? Okay. So this is review item number 4. Go ahead, Dr. Sullivan.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. Today we will be reviewing the Healthy Indiana Plan phase-out payment review. The expanded Healthy Indiana Plan waiver was approved by CMS in January of 2017 in order to provide health care coverage to individuals between 100 and 138% of the federal poverty level. The state of Indiana, in partnership with the Indiana Hospital Association, established that the HIP expansion program would be funded solely with current cigarette tax revenue and the hospital assessment fees, or HAF, with no impact to the general fund. In addition to the fees to pay the state share of the cost for this program, the IHA also agreed that HAF-eligible hospitals would pay an additional $11.5 million annually starting in fiscal year 2017 to be deposited into a phase-out fund. The funding deposited in this fund would be utilized to cover the annual state share of costs of the program if the state were to terminate the waiver for any reason. House Enrolled Act 1001 in 2019 allows the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning to annually review the HIP phase-out payment of $11.5 million for suspension following annual review by the State Budget Committee, beginning with the payment for fiscal year 2019. The Indiana Hospital Association is on track to meet hospital assessment fee obligations for direct HIP-related expenses through fiscal year 2019. HIP expenses are estimated at $2.9 billion for fiscal year 2019, and of this amount, the federal government funds $2.6 billion. Of the remaining state share of $300 million, $100 million is funded by cigarette tax revenue, and $200 million is funded by the hospital assessment fee. The HIP program is stable and is meeting the health coverage needs of over 400,000 Hoosiers. Medicaid does not forecast a termination of the HIP waiver in the future. In the event of waiver termination for HIP, Medicaid would work with the General Assembly, the State Budget Agency, the Indiana Hospital Association, and numerous stakeholders to ensure a fiscally responsible phase-out of the program. And therefore, we recommend suspension of the HAF phase-out payment for 2019. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator Talion.
I want to go back a little bit because I'm trying to figure out exactly where we are on this. This money was set aside to in the event that basically ACA would disappear or that there would be some reason why the HIP waiver would no longer be in effect, right?
That is correct.
But it's been 9 years since we've had ACA, and why are we still doing this at all? I mean, I understand, you know, yeah, let's stop these payments into a fund that's going to sit around forever. But why is this fund even still in the books?
Thank you very much for the question, Senator Talion. This was the first year that we looked at opportunities to relieve the hospital assessment fee, and this seemed like an appropriate one given the stability of HIP and expansion for Medicaid.
I think the change was a new administration came in and there was rhetoric saying, I'm going to end this.
Right.
Well, didn't.
It
Yeah.
didn't happen. Okay.
Yet. Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right.
Exactly.
I believe one of the initial reasons for putting dollars in the account too was just in case the enhanced FMAP might change to kind of ease into kind of more state funding if we had to, if the FMAP dropped quickly from the 100% to what 90 to
The floor is at 90
yep.
currently.
And Dr. Sullivan, one question for you. If this is just for 1 year,
That is
right?
correct.
It doesn't guarantee anything for the next year. Or
Correct.
future
House Enrolled
biennium.
Act 1001 gave us the authority to review this annually.
Senator Taylor.
Had we just simply signed up for the exchange and just went with the ACA as we were offered, would we be paying the $300 million is the difference between the federal? Would the hospital have paid that money?
So there are multiple different variations. Obviously, Medicaid is an individual state federal program. States that are expansion states solely without the components of the Healthy Indiana Plan, some of them, their state share is fully funded through state funding, correct?
So had we just simply been an exchange state,
An expansion state, yes.
an expansion state,
Yes, sir.
then the assessment that we had on the hospitals that we're suspending right now would not be necessary.
There's a little bit of a nuance to your
Okay,
question.
explain.
So may I walk through that? Is that okay with you,
Yes.
Representative Tim Brown? So the hospital assessment fee, the $200 million that we're talking about, and the $100 million that comes through tobacco tax, pays the state share of the exchange program. In addition to that, we set aside, you might want to call it a rainy day fund, which is called the phase-out fund, if it were to happen that the Healthy Indiana Plan were not to be renewed, or there would be instability with expansion in general. So we're only talking about today, we're only talking about the small component of $11.5 million that goes into that phase-out fund. There are other states that use hospital assessment fees to pay the state share for their expansion. It's different than our 1115 waiver, but there are expansion states that use hospital assessment fee funding to pay the state share.
Right, okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood. So we actually are suspending the payment to go into that fund
That's correct, for 2019.
for 2019.
Because we believe that currently the Healthy Indiana Plan itself and expansion in general are stable without risk of not being renewed.
Okay, which begs the question that my colleague asked. We're gonna do it every year?
We will reassess every
Until
year.
we find an administration that says they wanna keep the ACA? Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Senator Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure, so thank you for that clarification and walking us all through. Our Healthy Indiana Plan, the expansion, the hospitals and the cigarette tax, generalizing, pick up the share that the state doesn't have to pay in
That
order
is
for us
correct.
to offer more health insurance to more Hoosiers in the state. This is a totally separate fund, relatively new, and since we are robust in our hospital assessments and our cigarette tax, and because to date, the federal share has not dropped below 90%, although anyone with any fiscal sense realizes that's probably not sustainable, and there has been talk that regardless of administration, it may go down to 80 or 70% match. This phase-out fund would be the buffer so that the hospitals would pay, so that we continue to offer the health care that all of our Hoosiers expect, but it's not going to impact the state significantly yet. Is that what we're talking about today, just the first time of this phase-out, right?
Senator Brown, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, you didn't have to say that. I just want to make sure I got it in my mind. Thank you.
And as Dr. Sullivan and Zach Jackson said, this is an annual thing in the budget, so it will be brought back next year to be talked about again. So, any further questions?
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan, for being here. I think the bottom line is that there are two separate programs. You know, one program through the HIP, and then the other is the one that program we have that go sign people up in regards to that. Healthcare and other is where people can buy or purchase it, exchanges. So, as Dr. Brown said, you know, it's something but it's not. Hopefully this clarifies everything you're saying, but they're basically two different programs that are out there. Some states do what you alluded to, not this state.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next, we'll return to the agenda as outlined and start through agency projects. We have Madam Secretary Connie Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you. I know I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to go through the material very quickly, but I know you have in your red folders a history of our discussions with the budget agency and members of the General Assembly since August of 2018. I want to start my conversation with you by saying that, this past week we worked very, very hard on Tuesday and Wednesday to make sure that our media in the state of Indiana understood how important election security was, all of the good work that Indiana has done, all of the support that the General Assembly has given us. And in fact, there was a headline that really didn't reflect the conversation the way it went with the media, so I thought I should address that first. And I think the headline went something like the General Assembly wouldn't give enough money. Well, I have to tell you, we obviously had discussions beginning in August of 18 about what it would take to equip 100% of the direct recording electronic machines with a voter verifiable paper trail. And in fact, we understood the conversation with the budget agency that we should come back and ask for what we just absolutely needed, because there was obviously great needs in our state with the Department of Child Services and education and raises for teachers and all those things. So we revised our request. And so my request here today is the $10 million that you all appropriated for election security. The package includes 3 components: the voter verifiable paper trails, and in your packet I will guide you to, if you could, page 3, so that you can actually see what that voter verifiable paper trail means. Some counties in the state of Indiana have a paper trail already, but not all do, and about 60 counties do not have a paper trail that the voter can see how their vote is recorded and verify that was their intent. So we are equipping 10% of those types of machines, and the reason we chose 10% is because we wanted to make sure we got what we absolutely needed, and 10% is what we need in order to do a risk-limiting audit or a post-election audit to make sure that there are no anomalies in the election. The rest of the package includes local government intrusion detection and prevention, and also programmatic support. If you go to your packet and go to slide 5, you will see what the local government intrusion detection and prevention is. Our original proposal was sought to equip each county with an intrusion detection sensor, and over the summer we enhanced that option. So we know with a partnership with FireEye, it's no longer just going to be detection, meaning after something hits your system, but it will be a prevention sensor as well, and 24/7 monitoring, and it will be at the same cost to the state. The county end users protection sensors will be added. We originally thought we could only afford 100 end users in each county, but now with this state dollars we'll be able to cover up to 500. And why is this important? Well, we all think of the election offices as being susceptible to ransom attacks in order for someone to get into the statewide voter registration system, but that's not really where it stops. If you think about it, if somebody sends an email to the county recorder, and the county recorder then a week later sends an email to the county clerk, then if somebody has gotten into the county recorder's system, they can equally get into the county clerk's system. So we will be protecting, with this 40-month contract with FireEye, up to 500 seats in each county. And federal funding is equal to $6 million. The state funding is equal to $3 million for that portion of it. During this year, 8 of our counties have had ransomware attacks already, and that's why we think it's important to add the prevention side of things. We will be starting a pilot with FireEye next Tuesday, October 1st, in 7 counties: Allen, Du Bois, Howard, Huntington, LaPorte, Madison, and Tipton. And that will be our kickoff of the FireEye project. The programmatic support is important as well, because our voting system technical oversight program out of Ball State has had additional responsibilities added to them They are helping us develop the risk limiting audit procedures, and they will be helping us educate county election administrators on how to run the post-election audit. We have had 2 pilots in the state of Indiana already on RLAs. Marion and Porter County have been our pilot counties. We also have a new partnership with Indiana University, their Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research. We have an incident response plan for election security if the worst case scenario happened on election day. But IU Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research will be helping us refine that plan and also helping us educate the counties on exactly how to use that plan. And last but not least, we're using the services of Baker Tilly, Indiana, which is helping us develop a tabletop exercise for counties. We've already run the pilot, and we will be conducting a full tabletop exercise for all of the election administrators that come to Indianapolis in December for their annual meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Question, send Zach Jackson, Mr. Jackson.
Madam Secretary, how much of this funding represents ongoing, will be used for ongoing operational costs, and how will those costs be paid for once this one-time pot of money runs out?
Thank you, Zach. I really believe that all of this is a one-time expense. The FireEye contract is a 40-month contract. They offered us 36 months, and we said that doesn't take us beyond the 2022 election, and so we're covered with FireEye until then. And I think what that will do is that will let us see what the importance of it is, but it doesn't obligate the state to go any further with that. And these other, the IU Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, BSTOP, Baker Tilly, those are one-time expenses because of things that we need to do to increase our knowledge and make sure that our elections are secure. And obviously the voter verifiable paper trail, that's a one-time expense too. The state has not committed to buy counties anymore. In fact, it was unprecedented at all that you agreed to appropriate enough money to buy 10% of the voter verifiable paper trails for the direct recording electronic machines that are there. So this is all a one-time expense.
Senator Taylor.
Madam Secretary, why all this cybersecurity stuff?
Oh my goodness, why?
Yeah, I'm just figured, I'm trying to ask, especially the paper trail.
Well, since 2016, when we learned that there were 2 states whose voter registration systems were breached, Illinois and a small county in Arizona. That county in Arizona was breached because someone clicked on a phishing email. And since that time, election experts across the country have studied on how we can prevent those things from happening and actually changing votes. There were no votes changed in 16 and there were no votes changed in 18, but we don't want that to happen. And so we are stepping up our efforts. And so election experts have said, you know, the voter needs to verify and see that the machine that they are voting on records their vote as they intended to cast that vote. And if that's the case, then it would be, in a voter, we have that paper trail, then we can do a post-election audit, which would help us find any anomalies that might have happened on election day. So it's not, a RLA, a risk limiting audit, is not nearly as expensive as what you would have to do if you did an entire recount. This is just a statistical sampling of ballots. So let's say you win your race by 25 points and somebody else in Marion County wins their race by 5 points. We would have to audit more ballots in the closer race, in the 5% race, than we would in your race.
Right. The reason why I asked the question is because I assume there are priorities that we have, and I wanted to make sure that you're not saying that there was any irregularities in the voters' votes in the 18 or the 16 election, and you said that. But it further concerns me that what we're doing is I remember Y2K, you remember that?
I do.
Okay.
I'm giving away my age, and so are you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of money
Yeah.
on technology.
Yeah.
Because everybody's computer was gonna crash when the date went to 00, remember that? I'm just trying to figure out if we're doing overkill here, and the counties that you're gonna do this paper verification, what's your strategy if you find an irregularity?
Well, then you would have to go back and do a recount to make sure that the election results were correct. But Senator, I think you make a great point, maybe without realizing it, and that is that Indiana is taking the most economical way out. We are not just throwing out the existing voting machines that, oh, by the way, were recommended for use in 2002 when the Help America Vote Act was passed, and Indiana replaced lever machines and punch card machines, and we went to electronic or OpScan. And so we're not just throwing out that equipment. We are buying adaptations to those DREs so that people can verify their vote.
Which I have no problem with. I just wanted to make sure. I mean, it just seems to me that these are, we got to be careful when we start saying these things, because the general public, just like you saw in the media with your response to what the interview you had, the general public might get a different idea about what we're doing here. Some people might say, well, we had some problems, and there's 2 counties that you brought up in here.
Two states, two different states,
Well,
not
I thought
Indiana.
there were some counties
Senator.
that you said that there was.
Well, those were ransomware attacks. That was something totally different.
But yeah, but I don't know what a ransomware attack is. I don't know what the general public does. I just want to make sure the general public has confidence in what we're doing to protect their vote. And I think sometimes we scare them, and I wanted to make sure I'm clear on the fact that we've not had any problems with people's votes in Indiana.
Senator Taylor, my greatest concern is voter confidence, and that's why we sat down with the media for 2 entire days this week to make sure that they understood what we were doing and that we were protecting elections and that voters should have confidence in their votes being cast and counted the way they intended.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Talion?
Connie, good to see you.
Good to see you.
I have a couple, I'm not quite sure how these numbers are working.
Okay.
You're saying that the federal funds include 100 user endpoints for 40 months.
Yeah,
And
that was
then-
the largest contract, Senator. We're paying for that with federal funds.
Okay, so this increase to do 500
Up to
per
500.
county, that's what the 10 million appropriation is paying for?
That's for 3 million of the 10. Is that correct? That's
I
3
just-
million of the 10 that we're asking for. Of the 10 that we're asking for,
Yeah.
Senator,
Yeah.
it's 6 million for the voter verifiable paper trail
Oh, okay.
equipment. It's 3 million for the extra protection for counties, not only detection but also prevention. And then it's the million is for the other, for IU, for VSTOP, and for Baker Tilly, and all the extra responsibilities that they have to perform this year in order to get us up to where we need to be.
All right, thank you. I was trying to figure
Sure,
out how
okay.
the money was going.
Okay.
Representative Hamilton?
Thank you, Secretary Lawson. Really appreciate your commitment to safe elections. And just a couple questions for clarification. I think you mentioned that 60 counties do not have the paper trail today.
That's correct. They use direct recording electronic machines. And in fact, Representative, there are paper trails inside the machine in case an election needed to be reconstructed, in case, for an example, the electricity went out and votes had already been cast on that machine. But the voter can't see that paper trail. And so that's why the adaptation that you see in your slides.
Okay. So of those 60%, we're going to get about 10% of them online with the
Well, 60 of our counties
60 counties.
operate on direct recording electronic machines, and the state will be furnishing with this $6 million. Each of those counties will have a voter verifiable paper trail for the 10% of the machines that they own.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So do you have a sense of what, I'm getting a lot of questions about this for the last several weeks now, so I appreciate your indulging me here.
Sure.
So of the, what am I trying to get to here? So what percent on Election Day 2020 of Indiana voters will be in a system that has the paper trail?
Well, we have the other 30 counties that are already on a paper trail, and then we'll have an extra number of the people in the other 60 counties. However, they're really all protected because with that 10% of the machines that are equipped with a voter verifiable paper trail, we can do a risk limiting audit, and we can determine with a statistical sampling of how that county intended to cast their votes. We have asked VSTOP, they will be doing a random selection. So that, this is the RLAs, the risk limiting audits are all supposed to be done randomly. And so VSTOP will be, they certify our machines, they have a record of all of the machines and the serial numbers in every county. And so they will do a random selection for those counties and tell them which machine needs the VPAT.
Okay. And just so of the folks who will have that extra backup in 2020, I'm just trying to get, I assume the remaining counties besides the 60 are the more populous counties.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay. So do you have a sense? You might not know the number, but percent of Hoosiers who will have that?
I'm sorry, I don't.
That's
I
okay.
have
That's
not looked
okay.
at that.
And then just one more follow-up, if that's okay. So the phishing, the email protection, seeing the severity of that threat, and then I just want to ask why it's an opt-in feature for counties. Is that because they have a
We're
cost as well, or-
protecting their data and their servers and their websites, and the counties then can opt in for the email protection.
Okay. Is there a reason it's not just required that they have the email protection? Is it just because they don't want to?
Well, it's just, I mean, it's very expensive, and any legislator who's been around, and in yourself, you understand that counties can't necessarily afford to do that. But
I guess that was the second. Yeah. So there is a local cost if they opt in.
if they would opt in, there would be a small local cost. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
But we are protecting the most important part for them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Representative Porter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Lawson, just a couple of questions. And I believe in August of 2018, you came in, and I think you requested 100% funding.
We
for that.
discussed it. I don't know if we ever got to an official request with the budget committee, but we did discuss it with the budget agency before we put our
Agency,
request.
yeah. So, but we never did talk to any other. Well, you didn't talk to my caucus, so you didn't talk to.
No, we didn't
So
get that far because we understood how many needs there were. And so we revised our request, which originally was around 75 million, I believe. And we revised it before we got to the official meetings.
Okay, and the counties that you've chosen, I know first it was 5 counties, now you're up to 60 counties, right? In regards to the paper trail?
No, sir, I
No.
don't believe
Oh,
so.
so you're still at 5 counties in regards to the paper trail?
I don't understand exactly your question.
Yeah.
There are 4 counties who will be doing a pilot on the voter verifiable paper trail this fall in the municipal election.
Okay,
Hendricks, Boone, Hamilton, and Bartholomew.
and why were they chosen?
They volunteered. And they have the type of machine that has to have a voter verifiable paper trail.
Okay.
But currently, 60 counties prior to 2016 owned and operated their elections on direct recording electronic machines. That's where the number 60 comes from.
Okay.
So Marion County doesn't happen to be one of those counties because you already vote on paper. Basically, you mark your vote and then you take it and
Put it in the machine.
scan it in. So you have a voter verifiable paper trail. You can see the paper, the actual paper.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Brown, do you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify. So you're talking about giving support beyond, so all of our machines already had a paper trail, if you will. It was an internal that the voter couldn't see.
That's correct.
We're just adding a backup security system to some of those counties who didn't have that or chose to be part of this. But what is unique about this request is it's the county's duty to run their elections, correct? But now the state is stepping in and offering 10%, up to 500 users within the counties to offer this added protection. And in the meantime, we're offering a .com security protection from ransomware, like the city of Baltimore, which has spent millions and millions of dollars because they didn't pay the bribe. That's what you're also offering within this ask today. Is that not correct?
I believe that's, you said it very well, thank you.
Which is unprecedented, that we are now going to the communities and saying, besides you, as the Secretary of State, preserving and ensuring, which we've never had an issue with, we'll have fair, equal, accessible elections, we're also going to, and as you pointed out, there were several communities who've had ransomware attacks, and that's their responsibility to secure the data locally for whatever their property taxes, whatever it is. But you are now offering another service, and that's what part of this spend is.
That's correct, but I would just like to explain that, just think about how many state systems the counties are connected to.
No, I think it's great.
It's not just the statewide voter registration, it's child support, it's the judicial system. And so, if somebody, clicks on a phishing email in one of our counties and they don't have this protection, it could affect the state in ways that we probably haven't even thought about.
Right. But going forward, this is 3 years, is that right?
It's 40 months.
40 months.
Our contract is a one-time contract, and we don't know what will happen at the
Right.
end, but this contract does not commit us to having the state do any more. What I think will happen is the counties will appreciate the protection, understand the importance of it, and they will understand that they need to continue something like FireEye. It might not be FireEye for each
Right,
county.
that was my next. So they need to understand after 40 months, the protection will be gone, and they need to
That's
maybe.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Secretary Lawson.
Thank you, members of the committee. Mr. Brown.
Next, we'll go to item number 2, Mr. Mahern.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name's Jim Mahern. I'm the Deputy Director for Facilities, Engineering, and Environmental for the Adjutant General's Office. I'm here today to ask for the allocation of the appropriated amount for a very small project. It's a sewer extension to our Shelbyville facility. The Adjutant General's Office has about 11,000 soldiers and airmen all across Indiana. We're the 7th largest guard state in the nation. We have 6.2 million square feet and over 848 buildings. I'm asking about Shelbyville today. We would like to extend a sewer from the city of Shelbyville to our facility at Shelbyville. At Shelbyville, we fly UH-60s, which are commonly known as Blackhawks. We have had some environmental challenges running a very small package plant at this facility. The plant was originally built in 1972. We upgraded it in 1990. We added an aerator in 2017. We did the analysis of building a new plant, which would cost about $1.5 million to $2 million versus tying into the city of Shelbyville. And it's much cheaper for us to make a capital investment of about $600,000 to extend the sewer and pay the city of Shelbyville versus running our own operation at Shelbyville. The request is for $105,000 and $746 in state funds. The federal government will match dollars and cover 77% of the cost. I'd be willing to answer any questions the committee members have.
Any questions for Mr. Mahern? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to be moving to Department of Natural Resources, but Mr. Jackson wants to make a comment initially.
Just wanted to, I guess, kind of recap for the members. In the most recent budget bill, there was an appropriation for $75 million in each of the 2 fiscal years for deferred maintenance at state facilities. The administration is prioritizing most of those dollars for DNR. I'm not sure we have a set number yet, but most of those dollars will be going towards DNR. And I think today they're going to be requesting to use approximately $30 million, just a little bit under, for those projects.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Nikki. So, but DNR came in and had their own budget for requests for projects, correct? So this 75 million per year or more dollars of that 75 million is going to go toward DNR on top of what we passed through the budget, correct?
They were both passed through the budget, but yeah, these.
So DNR has requested X number of dollars, and then we're gonna take potentially $150 million take a percentage of $150 million, and on top of what DNR was given through the budget, going to extend that on top of DNR again, give them more than what they requested, allocated.
Correct.
Correct.
And this is what the administration wants to do.
Well, the
So-
budget bill had 75 million for each year. And the administration is choosing that DNR is the highest priority of the deferred maintenance.
So
If you
DNR,
look
so
at-
in other words, DNR is the chosen one to get additional dollars over their allocated budget that was passed.
If you look at the last 10 years, the deferred maintenance expenses of DNR have been higher than what we've paid into their deferred maintenance. So again, they're behind deferred maintenance over the last 10 years. Further?
I'm just concerned about, you know what, at this point, for the public's, record, it doesn't matter, because we're going to do what we want to do in regards to that. You allocated X number of dollars, then the administration says, well, we want this to be the chosen group to have more dollars allocated to them from the $150 million of the biennium. And Zach said, this is what they said for this, in regards to that 150 going to DNR over the next 2 years or whatever, percentage of it. I just find that very interesting from my perspective.
Okay. Further questions about the 75 million in the budget? Thank you. Mr. Smith, it is now yours. Is Mr. Kent going to join you at any time, or he's
my
just there
backup.
and back up?
He's my
Okay.
backup.
Okay.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. What a gorgeous fall day. DNR loves nice days. As the budget director and the chairman mentioned, I'm here today partnering with the Department of Administration to present 10 projects that would fall within the deferred maintenance appropriation. Project number 1 is titled General Rehab and Masonry for $7.8 million. This project addresses general rehab needs on 75 different projects located at 26 different properties. Shakamak State Park, which is located near Linton in Greene County, is being the largest recipient of 20 projects. It also includes the rehabilitation of 54 guest rooms at Abe Martin Lodge in Brown County. And Abe Martin is one of our most profitable lodges within the state. It has a 55% occupancy rate and a net profit of $1.4 million. This project also would refinish and upgrade showers in all 75 rooms at Spring Mill Inn.
Questions for Mr. Smith? Go, Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. As you look at this masonry, what is your MBEWE participation in regards to masonry? Is this being done in-house, or are you going to contract these services out?
Matt, can you address that, please?
Thank you, Representative. I think there's been some conversations we've had with you and with the MWBE supplier diversity within IDUA. So these projects haven't been bid out yet. Our supplier diversity has been taking a very proactive approach, though, to pre-bid meetings and to some of the contractors, reaching out to some of the contractors to get the diversity that we're trying to reach for our goals. So we're going to continue doing that with these projects, with all these projects as they come through the Department of Administration. Does that answer your question?
That answers my question. I'm quite sure that Senator Taylor will continue to address that at Department of Administration meetings.
Yeah, I believe there are ongoing conversations with that.
Representative Hamilton.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello. I just have a quick question about related to water quality. So in Brown County, as you know, the water treatment plant got contaminated and had to close down the whole park for, I don't remember how long it was, but I know that was a significant negative impact on the property and the revenue. Thinking about that particular facility, but also vulnerabilities in all of your parks, potentially of your water supply with increased rain events in the future. Does that factor in now or in the future?
We are addressing the Brown County sewage plant in a later project, and also pertaining to the water quality issue that you mentioned. I believe the park was closed for approximately 10 days. We lost anywhere between $250,000 and $500,000 during those 10 days. Weddings were canceled, reunions were canceled. It was a devastating time. We're also reaching out to a consultant to come in and look at the situation, to provide ideas and options, possibly reaching out to the town of Nashville, et cetera, and we'll just have to price those out and see where we're at. You're welcome.
Senator Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, you guys do keep the grounds, I have to say, with the limited amount of resources going down to Brown County every year, something our family does every year, and I want to compliment you on the facilities down there for what you have right now.
Thank you.
But going back to what Representative Porter asked, I'm going to ask that once you bid these and once these projects are complete, that you come back and give us a final accounting of what you did. Sure. I understand it's preliminary right now, and I grant you that grace. But once you get it done, come back and make sure you report on each of these projects what you did.
Sure, so we've got a list, and one of the things that we're gonna be doing, since Public Works is gonna be working so close with DNRs, we're gonna be meeting monthly with these guys to go over these projects, and so that'll be one of the things that comes up in those meetings.
Great.
And as we follow those projects through, we plan on kind of presenting this back to the Budget Committee, just not so much in terms of, I mean, supplier diversity would be part of it, but also just how the projects are going.
Great.
And how the money is flowing through.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, item 4, water quality.
Yes, water systems to the tune of $6.3 million. This item addresses 28 different projects at 18 different properties. Includes an upgrade to the Brown County State Park sewage plant by installing an additional clarifier tank in place of sand filters. We will also be replacing blower pumps and sludge return pumps. The project also includes replacing all sewage lines at McCormick's Creek State Park.
Any questions?
Can I, yeah,
Senator Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are all these wells, are these septic? I mean, most of our facilities are septic, I would imagine, because of the location.
Right, yes.
Is there anything new out there to help with some of these problems that we're having with contamination? Or are we just stuck with the fact that we're gonna have to clean these things and continue to, I mean, is there anything new out there that we could do?
I'm not aware. We're always searching for new ideas, but it's a heck of a responsibility.
Yeah, because I know sometimes we go down there and there's certain areas that you can't walk in because one of the fingers have leaked. And I do have compassion because bringing sewer in, local, it just cost prohibitive.
Sometimes sorry to interrupt, sometimes it takes us days, if not weeks, to find where the leaks are because it's so widespread.
All right.
Thank you for that comment.
Item 5, Mr. Smith.
Yes, ADA accessibility for approximately $2.8 million. This addresses ADA accessibility issues at 20 different sites. The emphasis will be on playground equipment, restroom facilities, and sidewalks.
Any questions? Item 6.
Item 6 is fish hatcheries, approximately $2.4 million. As many of you remember, during the budget development process, there was some consideration given to fund a modernization plan for fish hatcheries. While this did not come to fruition, there are significant maintenance needs that will be addressed at 2 of our hatcheries, Zacana, which is located near Martinsville, and McSaba, located in LaPorte County. The repairs will include new supply lines as well as replacing biofilters. DNR has a total of 7 fish hatcheries across the state that produce and stock over 20 million fish.
Is private industry building fish hatcheries competing with the state of Indiana?
Yes, to answer that question, yes, there is. We do not sell publicly. We basically, all of our fish goes out to our properties to stock our own lakes.
Okay, so our own lakes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, so I know the governor, we had looked at $16 million in the budget, and so I think you answered my question in regards to fish hatcheries, is that if we would've got the fish hatchery, we would've be able to upgrade these two hatcheries?
Yes, that was part of the 16 million, that's correct.
Part of the 16 million, right?
Yes, sir.
And so, we're gonna use this 2.4 to rehab extensively upgrade those hatcheries.
Two of those, yeah, these
Two
two,
of the
yep,
hatcheries.
yep.
But there's a lot more hatcheries that need to be addressed, correct?
There is other issues that need to be addressed. I don't think we'll come forward for the entire 16 million bucks whatsoever, but there may be a couple other hatcheries that need significant upgrades.
Well, at 16 million, you can take a bite, like a Subway sandwich, a little bit, you get that 16 million. Through deferred maintenance. Thank you.
Item number 7.
Number 7 is HVAC, approximately $2 million. This project will be 10 projects over 8 properties. The biggest recipient of this request will be Potawatomi Inn at Pokagon State Park, $1.2 million to replace the HVAC system and cooling pen. The inn has approximately 57% occupancy rate and net profit of $1.1 million.
Questions? Item 8.
Roofing, $1.7 million. This request addresses several roofing projects across the state. The biggest recipient will be 20 family cabins at Brown County State Park, which will be approximately $800,000 of the 1.7. It is estimated the approximately 1.5 million people visit Brown County State Park annually, and the park generates $2.6 million in revenue.
Is that net for 2.6 net?
No, that I think
Gross.
the operating expenses are about 1.6, so it'd be 1 million net.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Further questions? Item 9.
Item 9 is site work, approximately $1 million. Represents 9 projects over 8 different properties. One good example, it will replace Campground Gatehouse at Monroe Lake. Monroe Lake has approximately 1 million visitors per year and generates $2 million in revenue. It will also replace sidewalks at Spring Mill Inn.
Questions? Number 9, or number 10?
Restroom and toilet rehab, $1.4 million. This will replace numerous pit toilets, 21 projects over 9 different properties. We will replace the majority of these with a prefab pit toilet, which means we'll just need to lay the foundation. This should be able to get moving on this project very quickly.
Are these,
Go ahead, Senator Taylor.
are these the facilities at the state parks where, okay.
Yeah,
So-
the pit toilets that are there now were installed in the 80s, so this will be
You can
one
tell.
great upgrade.
You can tell.
I got you.
Okay. I just think, again, technology, we're going with the best that we can get
Yeah.
as it sits today.
We've tested these at Brookville, which is Whitewater over there, next to the Ohio border, and they've been very well received.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank
Good.
you.
We need them.
Yeah, I know we do.
Item 11.
Dock work, $1.4 million. Replace and/or repair docks at 5 properties, which are Shakamak, Monroe Lake, Raccoon, Lieber, and Brookville. We have 8 reservoir properties and receive approximately $500,000 in revenue in dock revenue.
Questions? Go ahead, Senator Talion.
Sorry. What kind, I've never heard of Shakamak. Can you
Oh,
tell-
Shakamak, yeah.
Just
Near
tell us what
Linton
that
in
is.
Greene County. Very nice.
Is it a campground? Is it a lodge? What's there?
There's no lodge there. Several lakes are within the Shakamak State Park property. Has several cabins, has a great campground. Yeah, very nice park. I'll send you something on it.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Senator Brown.
Thank you very much. So can I just ask, the fish hatchery we visited last year, is that on the list? It didn't look like it. I don't
It's
recall.
not on this list,
Okay,
Senator.
so that's still waiting for deferred
yes,
maintenance?
yep.
All right, thank you. And
Ver-
then, isn't this weekend a big weekend for you all?
Oh, every weekend's big
Well, I
weekend.
know that,
yeah.
but isn't this National Public, the free day?
Oh, wow. I think you're right.
All right.
That's great.
Okay, good
Yeah.
to know. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Item 12.
Campground upgrades for around $1 million. This request will support campground improvements at 3 properties. McCormick's Creek State Park, around 130 campsites. Willow Slough Fish and Wildlife Area, which is in Newton County, providing restrooms and showers. And the initial stages of providing electricity upgrades to 15 to 20 campsites at Shakamak once again. Senator Taylor, you asked a couple of questions, I believe, in July regarding upgrading our electric campsites from 30 to 50 amps. I went back and asked some questions. We currently have 6,000 electric campsites across the state. Right now, 2,500 of those have 50 amps. The remaining 3,500 have 30 amps. Now, that being said, there's a lot of properties that the 30 amp are adequate for the customers, but we're continually looking at prioritizing those needs and meeting the customers' needs.
Any further questions? And again, these projects are looked at DNR ranks their deferred maintenance needs as a 1 through 5, is that right?
That is correct.
And these 5 being most severe?
Actually, it's opposite, but yes, these are.
1 being most severe?
Yes.
And all these projects are ranked in the 1 category, is
1 or
that-
2, 2 is poor, yes, that's
Yeah.
how we did that.
Okay.
Yep. I also believe we've included a map where all these projects, kind of a pie chart thing, and so that'll help you see where everything's materializing. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next, we go to the Indiana State Museum Historical Sites. Ms. Faree?
Good morning. Thank you all. I've met with several of you to review what we're asking for today. We have 2 separate projects. The first one is a project that we're doing in conjunction with Indiana University. Back in the 1930s, Angel Mounds was one of the first archaeological sites in the state of Indiana, and partnered Eli Lilly, who was a man before his time. The property itself, we are responsible for the stewardship of it and the visitation. Indiana University is responsible for the archaeological rights and all of the artifacts. And the Indiana Historical Society was given the drilling rights because Eli believed they would never do such a thing at a historical site. So he was very adamant about putting things where people's expertise are. So Indiana University and the Indiana State Museum with Angel Mounds are intricately entwined. In order for us to tell the story at the site, we need to work with Indiana University in order to get the artifacts that help us tell that story. I spoke with some of you. I think Senator Talion said she remembered Angel Mounds was very dark. Someone from the budget agency remembered when she was there in 4th grade just that she was there. And you know, in order for us to really tell our stories and to be effective and move towards our sustainability, we need to be having experiences that people come back to. So we are requesting planning dollars so that we can look at Angel Mounds. I think some of you were there a year or so ago. It's 2 very mound-like buildings. A very inventive architect built them. And what we have to do is go in and figure out how to use better space and how to really be able to tell this very important story. So today I'm asking you for the dollars for us to look at how we can begin to take a site that is not memorable but is significantly important to the state. This is the Mississippian story thousands of years ago, and it is appropriate that we look at how we're telling their story. And obviously we'll be working with the tribes to be sure that we're telling a story in a manner by which not only will you remember it, but you'll come away with a new respect for the people of Indiana and who were here. So I would ask for permission for the $625,000 planning dollars.
And this is actually matched by IU, is that correct?
Indiana University has their own dollars. So these are the dollars we were allocated, and they have their own project, so to speak, as well. So we're looking at the site itself and the visitor center there.
Any questions? Okay, next.
Secondly, we are looking for approval for our $1 million match. As you all are aware, there is a lot of competition for the CR&R dollars, and my predecessor had set up an opportunity for us to double your money. So we said that if we raised $1 million, you would match it for us. So I'm here today to ask for permission for those match dollars. We have raised $1 million, and we'd like to match those. And we, not unlike our colleagues, have 7 sites that are in need of repair. They are Corydon, the state capital, the first state capital. The windows need to be repaired there for a number of reasons, some of the glass is original. We'd like to be sure that we can take care of that. They do have to all be hand done, as you can imagine, in a building that's that old. The Culbertson Mansion needs to have an appropriate lift put in. As you can imagine, with a mansion, there are multiple steps to go up, and we would like to be sure that that can be enjoyed by all of our guests. So we'd like to put a lift in there. We are also looking at painting a mansion. We are asking for dollars. We have 2 sites that talk about Gene Stratton Porter. The Limberlost site will really need painting, and I think I told some of you at one point, our development officer just stood in front of the pillar that needed to be painted while we were talking to the donors. So we would like to get that in a place where we can present it not only to our guests but also to our donors in a manner by which we continue to grow that site. And then the Gene Stratton Porter site, we were given a bequest, and we would like to use additional dollars in order to replace the dock that floated away earlier this year. And the Lanier Mansion, if you all have painted your house lately, painting a mansion is a delight unto itself. It has to be scaffolded, and then there's repairs that need to be done to the parapet around the mansion to be sure that it can stay in appropriate order and that it doesn't start leaking. Many of you, and thank you for making the trip. I know Senator Taylor was there, Doc Brown was there, many of the people from the budget agency came to our new visitor center at TC Steel. I am asking for dollars for a fire pump, not for the new visitor center. I just wanted to clarify. This is for the house itself that TC Steel lived in, and we need to replace that fire pump, which obviously is vital to a house that was built that long ago. We also received a grant from the tourism department to upgrade our Whitewater Canal experience. And we were asking for a few additional dollars, not unlike we did at TC Steel, but to be sure that we upgrade the entire experience. So when our visitors come, the real impact will be shown. So there's some painting and some brickwork that needs to be done in order to be sure that the site looks appropriate and is maintained as we continue to invest dollars in it. Those are 7 of our 12 sites across the state of Indiana. Bulk of the dollars will be going to those. Again, I think you've heard us and will continue to hear us talk about how we're a museum system. We have 12 locations, 1 in Indianapolis, and then the 11 across the rest of the state. We are requesting several dollars today for the Indiana State Museum proper in Indianapolis. We have been working on early childhood programming. As you know, much of the research has shown just how important those first years are and have had some real success. Many of you might know we had a visitor yesterday downtown, so it made getting to the State Museum a bit of a challenge as the road to there was closed off. But we were offering a preschool program yesterday morning, and all of them showed up in spite of the challenge. So we feel like not only are our guests recognizing the value in it, but are going the extra mile, literally in this case, to stay and come and visit. These programs utilize our galleries throughout the building, but what we need is a space that is appropriate for that age range. If you know children in child development, they do tend to grow but pretty quickly, but you certainly don't want an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old in the same area when you're trying to work with them developmentally. So we're asking for dollars in order to renovate a space that has been utilized but not to its capacity, and we're really looking at making sure that we use that space to its capacity. In addition, we are minus a mother's room, and we do mean a mother's room, which is vital, particularly when you're expanding your early childhood audience. Inevitably, a mother with a 3-year-old may have a newborn or a 5-year-old. Many of you are shaking, so you've experienced this. We believe it's really important and appropriate that we have a mother space for that. And then we have some audio-visual pieces within the museum that were put in 2002 when the building was built. We've discovered that replacing the light bulbs is more expensive than replacing the entire projector. So we are asking for dollars in order to upgrade that system, which also allows us to expand our rental facility. We have had some very significant rental people, and with technology today, one of them noticed that we weren't quite up to par. So we're wanting to be sure that we can offer the best services as we compete with other people in the city for rentals.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Great, thank you all very much for your time.
Next we'll go School of Death, Mr. Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jeremy Hawk, here representing the Indiana School for the Deaf. And the project that we have before you this morning is a replacement of the HVAC systems in our dormitory building on campus. This building was originally built in 1981, and these current systems in use are original to that construction. As such, we've had to make several repairs over the last few years and dip into our preventive maintenance budget to keep those systems up and running. In addition to replacing the system, this would allow us to update some older pneumatic controls to digital ones that will help us better regulate the temperature across the large building. This will help us not only keep the students safe, but also comfortable with the wide range of temperatures we experience here in the state. So with that, I'll open up to any questions.
Any questions? Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you have 125,000 roughly square foot dorm,
Yes,
and how many residents do you have now?
typically 80.
So how much of that, how many rooms are there actually, dorm rooms?
I'm not sure of the actual number of rooms. I think the maximum capacity is around 200 students.
So you're less than half full?
Yes.
So this $2 million allotment for just HVAC in the dorm, what are the maintenance costs annually for this build size? This seems like a pretty significant sized building.
It is a pretty significant sized building. In addition to housing students, we also house our student health center that operates 24 hours a day, in addition to the middle school and elementary school gymnasium. So there's several events that happen there, a lot of after school activities, and we host several athletic tournaments for other deaf schools across the nation. It's typical that those schools compete against each other, and we take turns hosting events across the nation. So at any given time, we do have guests and other visitors staying in that building as well. As far as maintenance
I'm sorry, just a minute. So the activities you just mentioned, do they happen there, or the people who come get to stay in the rooms as well? I didn't understand.
Both. We do host athletic tournaments there, and it's customary when we visit other schools that the students and staff stay on campus.
Is there a bill in a sense for that?
Not usually, no.
Okay, and so you don't know how many residential rooms though are vacant at the time?
I'm not sure on the number of rooms. I can find that information. I just know that it was originally built to accommodate around 200 students.
And the single rooms, I assume?
In some cases, yes, but I do believe we do have double rooms as well.
But you have classrooms in this building as well?
No, it's we teach some middle school gym in the gymnasium, but there's not really classrooms in the building.
Okay. I mean, has anyone, so you don't know what the ongoing maintenance costs for this building outside of this are on an annual basis?
No, like I said, we've had several instances in the last few years where we've had to make repairs to this specific system. And generally, it's all encompassing. Our steam plant operates and provides the hot water to those systems. So there are components to that system as well that are housed in this building. But specifically to this building, no, I don't know the ongoing maintenance costs.
And has anyone stepped back and looked at all of these? I mean, I also sit on the school for the blind and visually impaired. Obviously, another big facility, lots of buildings, and aging buildings with costs as well. I mean, at some point, with your boiler, and I don't know about you, but I know the school for the blind and visually impaired, just finding people who have the expertise to repair these aging systems. They're integrated sometimes, so it's not like you can peel them apart and fix one without the other, right? All of these things. So has anyone stepped back and looked at, okay, a new residential facility or something like that for 80 students versus maintaining a
We do have a task force formed that will be starting to meet, that will be looking at these specific questions.
Okay, and it hasn't started yet? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
who's on the task force?
Senator Mishler and myself, as well as lay people.
And you didn't include, I specifically asked that you include the people who represented the area.
No, because the question is, long-term, should there be two separate areas, first question, and then depending upon that question will be the next decision of the lay people.
But, okay, well, I kind of figured this was gonna happen, but I thought you guys told me that you would do that. You didn't, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
but under the last chairman, I specifically requested, and if the members of this committee will be, remember, I specifically brought up the fact that you were gonna effectively change the geographic outlook for two districts, and that
No, that's not been determined yet.
whatever you do,
That's
you're
not
gonna
been-
change it.
Huh?
Unless you leave it alone, then why have the task force? Well, let me say this. Until if there's no reason to have the task force, which means there's no changes, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we
restrictions,
still have a lot of deferred maintenance. I mean, as Mr. Hawk said, there's these buildings, and there's a lot of old buildings on both facilities.
I might agree with you 100%, Mr. Chairman, but not having a seat at the table when the people who live in that area I represent bothers me quite a bit. Just thought I'd let you know.
Okay.
And this isn't the first conversation we've had.
This is
Yeah.
not the first time we've had that conversation.
I understand.
Classism.
Any further questions for Mr. Hawk?
Thank you.
Thank you. Indiana Veterans Home, Mr. Kreider?
Thank you, committee members, representatives, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity for the Indiana Veterans Home this morning to present its capital request. The Indiana Veterans Home is requesting $300,000 in funding for repairs to its Commandant's House based here on its campus in West Lafayette. The house was built in 1896, is currently on the National Historic Register, as well as it's listed on the state's Indiana Landmark listing. It's currently used as living quarters for our superintendent on the upper floor, and the lower floor is designed as a space for meeting facility for other local organizations, including veteran service organizations, the American Legion, VFW. Unfortunately, the Wabash Valley Historical Association has identified this home to the public as the second most renowned historical structure failure in the county based on the current condition of the house. Significant improvements have already been completed over the past few years to restore the interior to the Commandant's House. Our project request today is for a designed historic preservation and restoration scope only, to the exterior of the home, including exterior siding, painting, windows, roof, handicap ramp, and particularly the veranda and porch, including their underneath porch piers and support foundations, which currently are prohibited from egress and ingress due to their unsafe condition. The funds will be used for the most significant safety hazards, and the shell structure will require about 6 to 9 months of construction to complete. Upon completion, with proper maintenance, should extend the life of this structure for the next 30 to 40 years. All funds requested are from the Indiana Veterans Home Building Fund, a fund which is fully funded, fully furnished by U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs monies, and no state of Indiana monies will be used for this project. I'll open up for any questions.
Senator Tyan.
Thank you. Yesterday was my first visit to the Veterans Home. It's a great piece of property and a really nice facility. But I do have a question about this. We've got an Indiana landmark building, and it's on the National Historic Register. And we're going to be putting public money to this. I would really like to see a plan for the public use of this building.
Okay.
I mean, right now, it just looks like we're spending $300,000 for one person's residence, which doesn't sound exactly like a public purpose to me.
Okay.
So, you know, exactly what do you have in mind for the use of this building as a public facility?
We have had a lot of inquiries for use on this lower level where there's a lot of open space, a lot of large rooms, requests from the VFW, the Legion, and a lot of our volunteer service organizations that are part of small groups that don't have a place to regularly meet. And what they've indicated, because we do a lot of fundraisers and we have a lot of volunteer groups that appear at our facility to do activities for the veterans, car shows and other different activities that we have. And they have indicated a great deal of interest. They wish they had a central place that they could regularly schedule to get together, where they all would know that they would go to regularly, that it was a space that they'd be comfortable with, that would have the technology and internet and the capabilities that they need to feel like they could compete with other local groups to get volunteers to serve on their boards if they had a place to go to. I think there's been enough interest there that's been one of the drivers to have this bottom area, which actually on the interior is in pretty good shape. We've done internal support for this thing for the last few years. The floors are in good shape, the ceilings we've replastered, and we've done things in accordance with the historic requirements to make sure we've kept the integrity of the historic structure. And there's a lot of interest on a lot of small organizations to come here regularly and do presentations.
Well, I think that'd be great. I'd just, you know, like to see that you present this as a public use structure and not just as a residence. And can I just ask you one more question?
Yes.
Yesterday we talked about who is eligible to come and stay and use the, stay as residential.
Yes.
Does the veterans definition include National Guard?
It does not.
Not?
It does not. There's been discussion about Indiana Guard retirees and participants that have requested for stay at the facility, but at this point we haven't admitted any.
But is that's something we could change that? The legislature could change that definition to include them.
To my understanding, there isn't any restriction that would keep us from that. The only restriction that we have, or at least the operating practice that we've had, is that the Department of Veteran Affairs provides funding for all those veterans there. And so they've kind of determined the guidelines that we've historically operated under. But I don't think they would have any restriction. They obviously wouldn't fund any of the
Right.
residents that are there. But my understanding is they wouldn't have any restrictions on those people that could qualify to be in the home. It's referred to as a state veterans home, only from the auspices of the Department of Veteran Affairs identifies all the homes of which they contribute per diem expense payments towards the veterans there. They require all those to follow the federal requirements for a state veteran home to get funding, but that's just for the folks that they're paying for.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Does the superintendent need to live on campus?
There isn't a requirement to. I think that there's been a tradition, but I'm not aware of any requirements that the superintendent be on site. I know that traditionally, both at the federal level where I came from, as well as I think on the state at state hospitals, I think there's been a tradition that they provide quarters for certain individuals who have, I guess would call it kind of 24/7 on-call responsibilities. I think there's been a tradition to provide them lodging on site at state hospitals, at federal facilities. I know the federal government has moved away from that practice. It can be costly. It also can be demanding on individuals to be there all the time. So that I'm not aware of any regulation that requires the person be on site.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. Next, Ball State, Ms. Rice.
Good morning. We're excited to bring for your approval a $15 million project for our new indoor practice field facility. It will be funded through donor gifts. To date, we've received over $14.3 million, and so we expect by the time we break ground, we plan to bid in June of 2020 and the following month break ground, and so we're hoping that we'll have all the gifts by that time. In the event we need to, the university will use reserves for the cash flow purposes, but we should be ready to go at that point. So it will, of course, be used for turf sports, including football, baseball, softball, and soccer, but also our marching band is looking forward to the facility. They use, the outside facilities, but when the weather is inclement, they need indoor facilities too. In addition, it will be used for recreation sports, community events, university events, alumni events. So we are looking forward to having the building. With that, I'm happy to take questions.
Questions for Ms. Rice? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Ivy Tech, Ms. Micklet? Oh, somebody else coming.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, fiscal staff. I'm Matt Hawkins. I'm here on behalf of Ivy Tech to present our Columbus main building replacement project. This was submitted to the Commission for Higher Education in the 1921 biennium as Ivy Tech's #1 capital project at $29.89 million. The project was previously submitted by Ivy Tech as the #7 priority project in 2013-15, and then again as #3 priority in 15-17 and in 17-19. It was reviewed by the Commission and approved by the Commission and sent to the General Assembly and funded by the General Assembly at 4% interest at the 29.9 amount in the 1921 biennium. We anticipate raising locally about $3 million in gift funds that would add automation and technology upgrades. So we're asking for approval for the full amount of the cost of the building at $32.879 million. The square footage will remain about the same and won't affect our resources with IUPUC and our shared space in that building. If the state funds this building with cash, it would keep Ivy Tech from incurring $30 million more in debt. It would allow the college to pay down about $30 million in principal via state fee replacement over the next 2 years, and we would go into the next biennium with a debt ratio at about 12% instead of 13%. And then very brief update on 2 projects currently under construction that you all funded in Muncie and Kokomo. In Muncie, our current XBE spend to date is over $5 million. We have a 20% goal. We believe we're going to end at about 24%. And in Kokomo, our XBE spend is over $11 million, and we think we're going to end that project with about 30%. So the goal on the Columbus project that we're seeking approval for would also have a 20% XBE spend goal in the contract. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And go ahead, Senator Tallien.
Thank you. This was not cash funded in the budget, correct?
Correct.
This is bond?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Any further questions? Yes.
Thank you for proactively bringing up the XBE participation in your project.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Indiana University, Dr. Morrison.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. On behalf of Indiana University, we have two projects for you today. The first one is on the Bloomington campus, and it's the renovation of the Lilly Library. The Lilly Library opened in the early 1960s. It is for collection of rare materials, largely funded by the Lilly family early on. And it is an incredible resource for the state of Indiana, not only the university. It houses rare collections that range from original Bibles. The original Gutenberg Bible is in the Lilly Library from 1450. Some of the first Bibles ever printed are in our collection. Government documents. One of the original copies of the Declaration of Independence is in the Lilly Library, one of 26 that exists in the world. Original documents of governor's papers here in Indiana. Wendell Willkie. You can go all through Indiana political history and find papers in the Lilly Library. It is a well-kept secret in terms of the rare documents that we have. In its time frame now, approaching 60 years, it's time for a renovation to upgrade all of its systems. HVAC, electrical, fire suppression systems, certainly security in a building like this. This will be a $12.4 million project with nearly $11 million coming from a grant from the Lilly Endowment. The remaining being funded by library funds. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
We have under our operating funds, so this is library operating fund?
Library operating funds, correct.
Balance, okay. Any further questions? Thank you.
Second
project?
Second project I have today is on our South Bend campus, and actually is in a building that we own just south of the University of Notre Dame. And this is a building that is co-occupied by the IU School of Medicine and the University of Notre Dame as a research facility. We are proposing to finish out basically the basement of the building that was never built out when the building was built. The University of Notre Dame would like to immediately put that to use as lab space. They're going to fund the project for $3.5 million. We are putting in $500,000 to make ready another part of the basement so that when we want to do the same thing for the School of Medicine. So for a total of $4 million, it is basically a build out of a basement for research lab space. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Morrison? Dr. Morrison? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we'll go to Purdue University, Mr. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have two projects for your consideration today. Both should sound familiar as they were both funded in the most recent budget bill. These are both on the West Lafayette campus, and both very much aligned with our mission and our strengths. The first I'll discuss is the Engineering and Polytechnic Gateway Building. As a reminder, this was funded in the budget bill, $60 million of fee-replaced bonding authority. The project proposed in the budget was phase one that you heard about during the session at $80 million, where 60 provided by the state and 20 by gift here at the university. Since then, we have received a very generous gift from the Lilly Endowment of over $40 million, as well as other fundraising that will allow us to do both phases at the same time. Phase two was always in the plan, but we found that there would be some efficiencies in construction and some savings by doing both phases at the same time. It supports our growth in engineering, which is one of our Purdue moves. Since 2013, we've seen a 22% growth in enrollment in engineering and a 31% growth in Polytechnic without changing the footprint of any of the classrooms. So we have those students crammed about as tight as we can, so this building is critical for the growth in both of those colleges. This is a classroom building. It will have classrooms, wet labs, dry labs. It'll be the home of industrial engineering. It will have nuclear engineering labs. The first-year engineering program, which is critical for engineering retention, will be housed there. And the site in which it will be built is currently the home of the Nuclear Engineering Building and the Michael Golden Labs, both of which are approaching 100 years old. And that would mean demolishing about 105,000 square feet to build this 225,000 square foot classroom building. Any questions about the Engineering and Polytechnic Gateway project?
Any questions for Mr. Hahn? Thank you. Next.
Thank you. The second, both you and our furry four-legged friends that you met this morning all benefit from as a state asset, and that is our Veterinarian Teaching Hospital, also supported by the General Assembly in the last budget at $73 million of fee-replace bonding authority. The total is $108 million, with the balance coming from gifts and operating reserves here at the university. This will be a 164,000 square foot building, and I showed you on the tour yesterday where it will be on the south side of campus by the power plant, which is very fitting for the animals and to receive the animals. This replaces the 1959 hospital, which is the oldest in the country of the 28 vet hospitals in the country. And we have squeezed every square inch of life out of that hospital and crammed all new technology into a 60-plus-year-old building that we can. The new hospital is actually 3 small hospitals together, an equine, a small animal, and a farm animal hospital, separated for biosecurity purposes and for different training purposes. As you know, we have about 20,000 cases a year that come through the hospital here in West Lafayette. We have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week emergency room, 6 ambulances. We treat about every animal you can imagine in specialties that you haven't even heard of. We do nuclear medicine, we have a CT and MRI, orthopedics, internal medicine, dentistry, ophthalmology. This very much fits with our land-grant mission of teaching the future veterinarians, as well as the research and the cancer and medical research that comes through the vet hospital, as well as the outreach and serving the citizens of Indiana. So again, this will be $108 million total, 73 from bonding authority, and the balance from gifts and reserves. Questions about the Veterinarian Teaching Hospital?
Any questions? Senator Taylor.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chairman. When we were discussing this during the legislative session, one of the things that was brought up was the school's capacity to accept additional students. And I think you were currently at an enrollment of about 82 per class. What is this going to be able to expand your class to?
And that was if you recall, and for those who sit on any ag or natural resource committee, and we were able to have a joint meeting in that as well, the current DVM class, so that's your highest level, your doctorate veterinary medicine, class is capped at 84, and that is strictly a capacity issue. We can't offer the clinical experience with any more than that.
Okay.
Now the total college has about 800 students because there's master's students, there's vet tech students, there's PhD researchers, but that DVM program capped at 84. The new hospital will allow us to look at growing that class. Now it's built for probably up to 110, maybe 115 or 20 DVM students at the clinical training component for the experience. To grow a class that size, a professional class that size, you would also need to increase faculty, classroom space, and everything that comes along with the 4-year DVM program. So it's more than just the hospital, but we couldn't grow without the increased hospital. So we will be positioned to, we'll need to look at what comes next to grow that class.
So this doesn't help you. I thought during testimony your director said that this will allow you to expand your class this coming year.
It will allow us to, because then we can have the clinical teaching capacity to grow it. But we also have to add faculty and more classrooms as well, which is, part of the hospital that we move out of will open up space. But the hospital itself is the training hospital for the veterinarians, and it will allow us to train 100, 120.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. In which class do you think that'll start?
Oh, well, this won't open until late 22, so it's a couple years off.
Okay.
Yeah.
applications are very strong for the program. I think we have 1,700 applications for that 84 spaces, so it's not a demand issue.
Any further questions for Mr. Hahn?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, Vincent's, Ms. Waldrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Linda Waldrop with Vincennes University, and I have with me Andrew Young, who is our Director of Architectural Services. On behalf of Vincennes University's Board of Trustees, I'd like and appreciate your consideration of Vincennes University's $22.3 million campus infrastructure project. This project is comprised of a $12 million campus electrical substation and $10.3 million in mechanical upgrades. The project will allow Vincennes University to replace our existing substation and ensure that VU has a significant power source to meet the electrical needs of the campus well into the future. The second component of our request is to complete mechanical upgrades to two of our academic buildings on campus. The upgrades are, the first one is to our Shercliffe Humanities Center. The second is our Philip M. Summers Center. The Shercliffe Humanities Center was constructed in 1970 and had a major addition in 1991. The building houses a variety of classrooms and educational space, and also the offices for the College of Humanities. This facility serves nearly every student on a daily basis, with many high enrollment general education courses offered in this building. The Philip M. Summers Building Center was constructed in 1992 and houses our College of Social Science, Performing Arts, and Communication, and also sees a lot of general ed courses being offered in there, so it's a building that has high usage. The funding for this project will allow us to replace HVAC systems that have exceeded their life cycle and are significantly unreliable and very inefficient and result in poor air quality. Other investments to the facilities include installation of new windows, ADA accessibility improvements, and LED upgrades. These projects reflect our commitment to improving energy efficiency while providing students with a safe and effective instructional environment. This funding will allow VU to make the necessary repairs to existing facilities, and there will be no additional square footage added to the campus. And at this time, Andrew and I are available to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. These are all being done at the main campus, not Jasper or Indianapolis?
No, these are all on the Vincennes campus. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to the review items on the agenda and proposed agreement extension of amendment exceeding $100 million. Ms. Chuhan, I'm butchering that name.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Chauhan. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Indiana State Department of Health. I'm here today to present, in accordance with Section 82, two of our major federal programs. The United States Department of Agriculture WIC program, the Women's, Infants, and Children's Supplemental Food Program, as well as the Ryan White CARE Act, Part B HIV CARE Act program. Both of these programs are longstanding at the State Department of Health and will continue in future years as they have in previous years with no major change. The WIC program is approximately $132 million a year, the majority of which goes to the food product that is provided to WIC participants. We also have a decentralized model of service where we fund 40 WIC local agencies that support 140 WIC clinics in every county of the state. We serve 145,000 individuals each month through the WIC program. Pregnant and postpartum women, infants, and children up to the age of 5 with food product, as well as nutrition education, counseling, referrals to services, breastfeeding promotion. With the Ryan White HIV program, this program has been in existence since 1999. We only receive about $12 million a year, but the project period has continued since the project's inception in 1999, which has allowed the program to exceed the $100 million threshold. Eligible HIV-positive citizens with income less than 300% of the federal poverty level are eligible to receive health insurance through the Ryan White Care Act program that we sponsor at the Indiana State Department of Health. I open the floor for any questions about either of these projects.
So Ryan White is 300%. Was that set up by legislation in Indiana?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, because 300% of federal poverty is actually a quite high number.
I believe that might be a federal requirement at 300%.
Okay, might be a federal, okay. Have we seen the number of cases in WIC grow, stagnate, or decline over the last decade?
The WIC numbers have been very consistent over years, as has been funding. Since 2015, the figures I have in front of me, we've been averaging between $31 and $35 million for the administrative portion, and between 111 and 103-ish million dollars in the food product.
Okay. So if it's been stagnant in food, it's probably gone down in the number of recipients because food's gone up, hasn't it?
Certainly, the food products that are provided as part of the WIC program are all fresh products, dairy, milk, cheese, and yogurt, whole grains, eggs, fruits, vegetables, and infant formula. I'm not sure as far as the specific participation numbers, but I can certainly get back to you with those figures.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Mr. Boland, proposed agreement extension.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Paul Bowling. I'm the CFO for the Family and Social Service Administration. For today, we have 5 grants that we'd like to share with you that reach the threshold of $100 million or more. The first grant is the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families grant. We're estimating this grant to be just over $206 million for 2020, and this is based on our estimated from our 2019 grant award. The purpose of the TANF grant is to provide cash assistance and supportive services to assist families with children under the age of 18, and the program is funded under 4 main purposes. So there are 4 main purposes under the grant that must be, you have to meet one of them to be eligible for TANF funding. The first one is provide assistance to needy families so that children may be cared for in their own homes. The second is to end the dependence of needy parents on government benefits by promoting job preparation work. The fourth is prevent and reduce the incident of wedlock pregnancy. And fourth is encourage the formation and maintenance of 2-parent families. The main difference between the purposes in this grant, so that you're aware, is under Purpose 1 and 2, there's an income eligibility requirement, which is they have to be at 250% of FPL or below, and for Purpose 3 and 4, there is no income eligibility requirement. The second grant is the Childcare Developmental Fund, better known as CCDF. Annually, we anticipate this to be just over $113 million in 2020. The purpose of the CCDF grant is to increase the availability and affordability of the quality of child care. So the CCDF grant supports low-income families who are below 127% of FPL, so funding so they can provide child care for those families. Currently, there's approximately just over 28,000 children who receive vouchers under this program. The next 3 grants that I have are all related to the Medicaid program and various programs throughout Medicaid. The first of those grants is the Medicaid Assistance, which is the largest of the grants. This grant aligns with our Medicaid forecast that we presented in April. It's just over $10.1 billion. And as you're aware, Medicaid serves a large variety of our population. About 1 in 5 Hoosiers are on one of our Medicaid programs. So it's about 1.5 million. Of the 1.5 million, 1.1 million of those are in managed care. So some of the programs that helps fund are the managed care, our waiver services, which would include the various waivers, nursing facilities, just any programs that are under the overall Medicaid oversight. The next grant related to Medicaid also is the Medicaid admin grant. So this grant amount we're estimating at just over $459 million for the year. Again, in simple terms, this basically provides the administration funding to oversee any of those programs that are funded through the Medicaid Assistance program. So that may be staffing, contractors, systems related to Medicaid, any of that. This grant would help fund those activities.
Is that all state money? I mean, is there a federal match?
Yes, there is federal match under there. So for the administrative piece, there's either a 75 or 25% match depending on what that activity is. If it's more related to IT, a lot of times we can get a 75% match. If it's strictly staff or more administrative, your normal administrative, it's a 50% match.
Okay.
The last grant we had was the Children's Health Insurance Program. For the CHIP program, we're estimating the grant award to be just over $261 million. The purpose of CHIP is to ensure access to quality care for children whose family income lies up to 250% of the FPL limit. CHIP provides low-cost health care coverage for children and families that otherwise would not qualify for Medicaid. Currently, we cover about 110,000 children under the CHIP program. A little different, the CHIP program, it has an admin and assistant component, but the grant for the CHIP program, it's all under one grant, unlike assistance where it splits it out between the two. I'd be happy to take any questions on any of those.
Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for the TAMP, it says, I think, clarify for me, there are 4 possibilities to receive the money, and you only have to meet one of the 4?
Yes,
program?
that's correct.
And so do we administer grants through all 4 of these avenues, so to speak?
Yes, we do varying ones, and looking at what funding's available and the people we provide funding to, seeing which ones those would fall in. But yes, we would have things that fall into those different purposes.
Okay, so I think 1 is probably fairly obvious, but with respect to 2, 3, and 4, is somebody tracking that and determining whether or not the program we're funding is actually achieving its goals?
I think we do have monitoring. I mean, we do a lot of sub-grants with different agencies and different groups to provide this funding. So we would work with those agencies in tracking the spend on this and what it's specifically being utilized for. And then through our federal partners, they would also, we have an agreement with them, and they would, something that we would work with them to ensure that it's meeting one of those program goals. Because if auditors would come in and look at that and it wasn't, then it's something they, would decide not to fund for us.
Okay, well, I just thought this was very, I mean, we're talking about, for example, number 3, out of wedlock pregnancies. That's pretty easy to track, and so, I mean, obviously you're tracking the spend and the money going into that, but are any of these programs successful that we're actually forming, so to speak, more 2-parent families, less out of wedlock pregnancies, et cetera, and who decides that at some point that program isn't working so that we're actually seeing these improvements being made?
Right, I mean, very, very good question, Senator, and I'd have to actually go back and look at exactly what we're getting, as far as the metrics and stuff that we're tracking on that. I know we look at, doing that, but as far as seeing, to your question, is it achieving that, or at some point are we deciding, hey, that's not really reaching the goals in that, so that's something that we would have to look at, kind of at a higher level to make that decision. But I'm happy to look at, what metrics we're getting and looking at as we work with these different programs.
And again, related to what Representative Brown had asked earlier, so this is 250% of the poverty level for all of these? No, for purposes 1 and 2? So
Yes.
that's a single person with a 30,000 a year income, family of 4, 62,000, and they can end the dependence of needy parents on government benefits by promoting job prep, work, and marriage.
Right, from that standpoint.
So I would love to know, specifically on that one, what kind of programs we're funding and what their success rate is and the metrics on that.
Okay,
for the number.
I'd be happy to get that for you.
And then one final question with respect to the administration costs. So that 459,000 and change, that is a piece that is being, it's not wholly the FSSA's administrative cost, that's the contracting agencies.
Yes.
It's siphoned, not siphoned off, but it's separated so that we know exactly what their administrative costs can be.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So we have admin costs that we would have for our own staffing, and then have admin costs that would relate to people we have for contracts. And we also have administrative costs through other agencies also that we would track.
And then, I'm sorry, I forgot, the Childcare Development Fund, is this the same fund where FSSA has recently changed the number of service areas, reduced the number of service areas in the state, and has just recently put out a new RFP, which was gonna be starting October 1st?
As far as, and I'm not sure specifically what that related to and which RFP you're referring to.
With respect to offering child care services and also on my way pre-K consultation, things like that, so that our child care delivery systems and preschool delivery systems are working at their best.
Right.
You've reduced the number of service areas. There's some new vendors in my area, and
Okay.
there is significant concern. I don't want to make the comparison to the transportation rollout last year, but there's a significant concern for those who would be receiving those services, that is the providers, that the loop hasn't really been closed yet on who's actually going to be servicing them and giving them the coaching
Okay.
that
Right.
they need.
Okay. I mean, that's something we can definitely look at, and I understand which RFP you're referring to now. So, yeah, something I can go back with and talk to the division director and stuff with that, around the communication and stuff around that, to ensure we're, have closed that loop, to make sure everybody's aware of what that looks like and who they need to go to, who will be servicing them.
And that they're ready to start October 1st.
Right, correct.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Porter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. As we look at this temporary assistance to needy families, do you have an itemized statement, itemized list, where you plan to spend the $206 million? What programs and where the cash assistance will go?
Yes, we do have an allocation of where that funding does go and who does receive that funding. Yeah, and I'd be happy to pull that information together for you and share that with you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And when can we expect that?
I can pull it together, and hopefully next week or so I can get that to you, if that works with you.
Week or so, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll look forward to receiving it.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Next is Medicaid state plan amendments. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Chairman Brown, members of the committee, Allison Taylor, Medicaid Director. I am here to present a handful of state plan and waiver amendments to you. The Secretary presented the DISH methodology, so if it's all right, I'll move to number 2, which is inpatient hospital rate reduction. So this state plan amendment proposes to extend the current 3% rate reduction for inpatient hospital services. And the rate reduction will be extended for the period through June 30th of 2021.
This is on top of the rates were increased from the prior year and then had a 3% reduction?
So if it's okay, I know that we've kind of talked about that in this forum before, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. So I would have to either defer to Paul, or if we could get back to you. I don't want to
Okay.
make the mistake of saying something wrong on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you. I'm going to ask this question, and it's about this one, but it's also
Sure.
about all of these.
Right.
I'm just trying to get back to the history of why we did this 3% rate cut in the first place, right? So we did this as a result of the 2007, 8, 9 recession issues that we had. Why are we still doing this? It's 10 years later. Why are we still taking 3%?
Yeah, I understand the question. So this is an issue that we work very closely with budget on, and at this time, it has remained to be kind of the prudent path forward. That being said, I think we're always trying to have that conversation on what the future impact, but for this year and for 2021, through 2021, that's been in the forecast and is.
And with the hospital assessment fee, the 3% reduction, this has become the new normal, so to speak.
Well, that's what I'm questioning.
Yeah.
Is why has this become the new norm? We've got a hospital assessment fee, and I get that part, but we're still doing this holdback, and am I wrong when I look at these figures and say that for every amount that we're holding back, the federal match part is also not being paid, right?
Right.
So they lose, not only do they lose that 3% that we hold back, but they lose the 2/3 part of the federal match for this?
Right.
And that's for all of these providers?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to figure out why we're still doing that when, I mean, we just reverted, what, $180 million out of the Medicaid back to the general fund. Why are we still doing this?
It's the new paradigm.
Okay, that's the answer?
This ain't new. This has been going on for 6 years.
Well, I mean, that's new in government term.
Oh, okay, in government terms. I'm sorry. All right.
Yes.
Any
further questions on item 2?
I do have a question.
Sure.
For her. Yes. Kind of along those lines. What were to happen, and I don't know if this is a fair question for you, it might be a question for Budget Director or Chairman Brown, but what if we did receive a letter from the federal government saying our reimbursement was going to go down for certain things was going to go down? How would we fill that gap? How would you use the reserve?
Well, I mean, what do you mean by go down? They're going to pay Indiana less federal match, so the match is going to go down? We'd probably have to make that match up in state dollars.
Right. Which begs the question, Mr. Chairman. So you have the reserve, which is in today's dollars, and you're saving it to replace funds that are future dollars.
So we should have more in reserve?
Well, yeah, if you're doing it that way.
Yeah.
So don't give me. I mean, I'm not Zach Jackson, nor am I Dr. Tim Brown, but I have a little bit of knowledge of finances, and I'm just trying to figure out when is that day going to ever come? Because it could be 20 years from now, we could be saying the same thing.
Right.
And I just think that there's other programs and other things that we could be using some of that money for that we're holding on, waiting for the federal government to say, we're not going to do this anymore.
Well, again, if you remember 2009, 2010, we spent about every dollar we had in the state, so the reserves were very important at that time.
Excuse me?
The reserves were very important at that time, 2009, 2010. Because we spent down to, I believe,
1.8 billion.
about $50 million. Cash is all we had.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about, well, if we were talking about cash, that would be one thing. You're saying that we have in reserve on a budget cycle a certain amount of money. That's not cash. That means we spend less than what we project to bring in. So when we don't get that money, it's not cash.
Yeah.
I just hope people understand that. I'm just trying to, still trying to figure out what programs we see as a priority, Mr. Chairman, because I can tell you that we're gonna be paying quite a bit for this opioid thing that we're doing right now, this opioid crisis. You think Medicaid's costing us money now, I mean, that people are gonna be on Medicaid now, in the future, that's gonna get bigger, because somebody's gonna have to pay for this, and it ain't gonna be the private sector.
Right.
So, I mean, I just think I think we're doing things right now that are gonna harm us in the future, and that's why I'm asking the question, what's the fiscal policy behind what we're doing to keep increasing these reserves and then reverting the money to other stuff? If we kept the reserves and then we didn't revert, that would be one thing. But every year we keep our reserves and then we revert.
Well, I guess I look at reserves a little bit differently. I mean, we look at a state general overall budget reserve of around 11 to 12%, and that's what we've tried to keep as a target.
Right.
Medicaid per se has had some money that we have rolled over within the program year after year.
Right, so where do you, right, that's after you've saved it. After you've saved that 11%, you roll it up. That's the point I'm making. Do you see the point I'm making? You just made my point for me. If you keep doing that, why not just go ahead and put it in the budget and then don't spend it for the next cycle? It's kind of like you're saving 11%, then you're spending it in the next cycle. Then you're saving 11% and you're spending it in the next cycle.
But you're always saving.
Okay. All right. Again, not cash, but based on what we anticipate we're going to receive.
Yeah.
Okay, that could come back to haunt us one time.
Representative Porter.
I know you just love me today, don't you? In regards to this conversation that we're having, we're talking about, I know you mentioned 11%, 11 to 12%, but I think our reserves right now are about 14% of, in which, I think we can have some dollars to maneuver and do some other things with. You also, and I just can't let this pass, you talked about spending money, but we also got stimulus dollars over $500 million back also during that time. So I hear what you're saying, but I just have full disclosure on the dollars that we did have coming in that helps maintain what we had through the American Recovery Act. Dr. Brown, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Continue on.
Okay, thank you. So item number 3 is actually the outpatient hospital rate reduction. The state plan amendment proposes to extend the current 3% rate reduction for outpatient hospital services that were set to expire June 30, 2019.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Taylor?
Yes, specifically on that, what do you mean by outpatient recovery services?
So outpatient services, so the first item was on inpatient, so those that require an inpatient stay in a hospital. Outpatient are more of kind of the ambulatory and non-in-hospital stays. Does that make sense? And I could, if you want to see, we can give you a list of codes.
Yes, well, no, I don't need a list of codes. So you're saying that level went down, where that level of spending went down. Is that right, the outpatient, out of hospital?
So we're reducing, we're continuing the current 3% reduction for outpatient hospital services.
Now, I don't wanna mix apples and oranges, but haven't we already, don't we understand that we already have less providers with enough staff? Okay, so our reimbursement for these services, right, has not gone up since when?
They go up every year.
Yeah,
Does it go up every year? Is there a COLA?
There are changes. They aren't uniform across every procedure, but there are changes of increases.
Okay, because I'm thinking of the provider agencies that I represent that tell me that they're seeing a reimbursement rate of about $19.25 per individual that they have for staffing people who are in-home services, right? And right now, they're saying they can't find staff because the reimbursement rate has not gone up.
yeah. So
And we keep talking about reductions, again, with a reserve, coming back, filling the hole the next cycle with that reserve. And at the same time, the people who are receiving the services, Mr. Chairman, respectfully, we've had bills in the last 4 sessions to address the fact that people who receive services need to be protected more and more, because people who are providing these services are taken advantage of. Well, one of the reasons is because we don't value reimbursing these people for the service they do provide. They take care of our elderly, they take care of our sick, they take care of our disabled. And these provider agencies have not seen a value increase, maybe some type of change, but not a value increase in several years. And now we're here again, doing a 3% reduction. We're not gonna provide them with any more reimbursement. Maybe in some services, but not on the home care services that I've seen.
This isn't the.
So that's why I'm trying to look at.
Understand. So, Senator Taylor, home health services would not be, so this is hospital,
I thought this was out of.
yes, but that is, home health is something different.
Okay.
Not to say I didn't register your concerns and feedback, but
Because we did do it on the home health side too, right?
no,
We don't,
no
we don't
longer.
reduce it? Okay. We increased it then.
So I'm gonna talk to you in a minute about a rate methodology work that we're doing. So
Okay.
over time, we really do want to have, consistent methodologies across the board. Not there yet for home health, but. Okay. So item number 4, is an extension of the nursing facility rate reduction. And this is a 3% rate reduction that, was set to expire July 1st, 2019.
Question?
Yes.
Go ahead, Senator Tanya.
This is a lot of money. I mean, the other ones were smaller amounts of money. This is a lot of money. What's the impact on the nursing homes when they're basically losing $60 million?
So I don't know, I couldn't answer for the nursing homes, but if your question is, the specific how do we get here, I think it involves some of the base, assumptions and rates, which I could absolutely follow up with you. I'd have to get with our actuary team to give you, and our finance team to give you some details. But I can follow
I'd
up.
like somebody to give me some details, because this seems huge to me, and I know it was included in the Medicaid forecast, but, you know, when you take out the 3% holdback that we have, plus the federal money that they lose or that they don't get as revenue, you know, $60 million has got to be a huge hit to the nursing home industry, and I don't understand why we're still doing this. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
Allison, correct me if I've got this wrong, but for each of these areas where we're doing rate reductions, there are audited cost reports done every year, something like that, and then based upon whatever those determined rates are, this is a a reduction off of those rates. And so even though these are shown as negatives, it could be that since the costs are going up every year, even though it's negative, these providers may be getting more in fiscal 19, fiscal 20, I guess fiscal 20, fiscal 21 than they actually did in a prior year?
I believe that would be the case, yeah,
Okay.
could be the case. Facility, nursing homes in particular, are cost report.
If their costs are
yeah.
going up,
Mhm.
then if it's a 3% reduction off their cost.
I think so.
Continue on.
All right, thank you. Item number 5. So this is an amendment to our A&D, or Aged and Disabled waiver. This waiver provides home and community-based services as an alternative to nursing facility-based care. So Senator Taylor in particular, this is the rate methodology work that I mentioned earlier, where we partnered with industry to work to establish transparent and standardized process for looking at rates across the waiver. And so as a result of a really comprehensive work group and to make sure that we can sustain an adequate workforce to serve individuals in their homes and communities instead of an institution, as a result of this work, we are seeking an amendment to our waiver to increase rates for service categories within this home and community-based services waiver. And so
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to get more specific. So what are you, so give me specifics about the rate, the increase.
So for...
It looks like for, go ahead.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
no. Let me grab my, so for the A&D waiver, there's a handful of home services ranging from respite care, homemaker, attendant care, care management. That's kind of like the whole basket. Over time, our rates had, to your point, some had not been increased in many, many years. A couple were touched every now and then, either by legislature or through policy. And so the goal was to really standardize across the HCBS waivers and make sure that our rate methodologies were transparent and well understood, and industry had an opportunity to give feedback. So we literally had a collaborative session with stakeholders, and through rate studies, identified where we needed to increase reimbursement to ensure adequate workforce. And so there are very specific financials that we can provide to you that illustrate kind of what the trend line was and where we really invested. And I can tell you that we found areas of biggest need were respite, homemaker, and attendant care, and that's where a lot of that investment is.
Yeah,
It results in about a 10% increase.
Oh, okay. 'Cause
So-
as I look at the state budget, and this is category 5,
Right.
you've got state fiscal year 2020, 13, this is the federal budget impact. It's almost double. And then the state budget impact is more than double. So you said it's a 10% increase? Okay, 10% across the board in spending of
Right,
over.
for
What
HCBS
about the
waiver
waiver?
services. Of
Okay.
waivers, so it's about a 10% in this waiver category
Okay,
increase.
10%
Yeah,
in the waiver category for the
Yeah.
entire Medicaid spend, okay.
right.
Um,
And that's a methodology going forward. We'd like to take that same approach, like when we talk about other service category areas, so.
so is there any concern that if you don't adopt this approach, that you're gonna find yourself in this predicament 10 years from now?
Yeah, so I think this methodology is what we hope to avoid that predicament, right? So where we know we're on a schedule, we know whose rate's up next, when we're gonna review it, and it's transparent for you, for providers, for us.
And when does this rate increase take effect?
So I think we're targeting 1/1/20.
And if provider agencies wanna get a copy or whatever,
They
would.
yes,
they would know.
but the distinguishing factor, home health, isn't on this waiver. So that's where I think some of your stakeholders that you're talking about will get some benefit if they're doing waiver services. If they're just doing state plan home health, that's a separate stream that we're gonna get to.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thank you.
Continue.
So item 6 is actually just a continuation of this. It includes the traumatic brain injury waiver. They were included in this methodology work. Okay, so if it's okay, I'll go to item number 7, which is an amendment to our HIP 1115 demonstration waiver. So in 2018, CMS approved Indiana's waiver amendment to allow Medicaid reimbursement for substance use disorder for those individuals receiving treatment in an institution for mental disease. And so what we are seeking, the federal government recently changed their policy and allowed states to include the other half of that continuum of care, which is serious mental illness and serious emotional disturbance. So we're seeking approval from the federal government to include that in our 1115 waiver, which will really allow us to address whole person health. Oftentimes, individuals with SUD have a co-occurring SMI, and right now there's an imbalance, and so we're trying to balance that out, targeting a January 1st, 2020 effective date.
Go ahead, Senator Taylor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, this is what I'm talking about, but we didn't go far enough in our waiver. Why aren't we asking for this for those people who are behind bars?
They're not.
It's a great question. So
They're not eligible.
there's a
Why
limitation, there's a
we can
federal.
get a waiver for that, Mr. Chairman. We can get a waiver for it. We got a waiver for HIP 2.0. We got a waiver for people
So more people on Medicaid.
that are behind bars, that have a substance abuse problem, who we are already paying for. Yes,
Well, they're being paid locally.
somebody's footing the bill for them to have
Locally.
health care services, Mr. Chairman. And with all due respect to that, yes, locally they're picking it up, but then it's passed on to the people who live in those communities because they have to pay money for higher dollars for services that they get from the county. Whereas if we ask for a waiver and we could use Medicaid, these people probably could get out and wouldn't recidivate. But that's okay. I don't have a magic wand, but we asked for a waiver for a lot of stuff. And this is one of those where if we ask for a waiver to allow us to use Medicaid and the Medicaid federal budget impact as well, which is matching funds, it would save money down the line.
16% success rate.
In what?
Most people incarcerated in their addiction treatment.
Because they don't have adequate services.
16% success rate.
All right. Hey, we can keep arguing. We keep doing it the way we want to. No problem with me. Crime just keeps going up and people keep using more drugs. Good program, but I think we need to go a little bit further with our waiver.
Senator Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. So since this is inpatient that we're talking about, right?
Right.
They're receiving treatment in an institution, this
Yeah.
is an outpatient, right?
No, this is in the IMD setting, is my understanding.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'm sorry, yeah, in the IMD setting, right.
Yes, okay, so what's our bed space with this, do you know?
Oh, I could follow up with you. I mean, we've, since our expansion of SUD treatment, we have really increased the bed space. So a lot of increased capacity. Always could do more, but I'll have my colleagues at DMHA actually certify in this space, and we could get you concrete feedback on what that.
I'd like that, and also what you anticipate when we start covering the SMI, what you think that will, what those numbers will look like. And then also, if you have the metrics in terms of, because it is difficult, the recidivism rates, if you will, or the failure rates aren't great with SUDs, but I'd be curious with SMIs,
Right.
how they are keeping those people on track. Because that's one of the problems, right? As long as they take their meds, they're good. When they go off their meds, and how do we track that? So
That's great.
if you follow up, I'd appreciate it.
We will. Thank you.
Further questions for Ms. Taylor?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have I-65, I-70 north-south split, Mr. Janicki.
Mr. Jasinski, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. In appreciation of your time today, I'm going to try to just touch on some of the items that are in your packet, I hope, for the presentation. My name is Kevin Jasinski. I am NDOT's Major Project Delivery Director. And the I-65, I-70 North Split project is reconstruction of the interchange in downtown Indianapolis. We're going to demo and reconstruct more than 40 existing bridges. This includes significant aesthetic and design improvements for that area. This project is a design build best value project under the Indiana Code. It is funded by state and federal dollars, and the construction budget is anticipated at $240 million. The construction is going to take place in 2 seasons, which would be starting in summer of 2021. Okay. The current phase of the project, we are in our request for proposals phase, and we are going to issue the final proposal hopefully in the next month. The plan for the project is to score the proposal or receive our final proposals back in spring of next year, review them and select a preferred proposer right around May of next year. Okay. The scoring of the proposal will be based on a technical and price. And just to point out, an important part of the technical is that we are very concerned about the duration and movement closures for the interchange. So that is an important part that we are scoring within this project. That's basically all I have for the overview. One thing I'd like to bring up also is the DBE goal for the project is 9%. Due to the federal participation, we have to use the DBE program, and that is 9% specified for the project. Welcome to answer questions at this time.
Any questions? Senator Brown.
Thank you. So, with respect to this project and others, is the Department of Transportation the responsible agency, if you will, for the design and the final project in terms of approving how all this is going to look? It's not anyone else's. I mean, those approval of the drafts, the contractors, and the final project, that's going to be under you?
That is correct. That's NDOT's responsibility under the code specified in the presentation.
Okay, so I'm kind of curious, how long do you think this project will take?
The procurement has about 6 months remaining, and then it'll take some time to get the contractor moving on the project, but it'll take 2 years for construction.
Okay.
So 21 and 22 are the anticipated years.
So what happens if, that's pretty short, so it probably won't happen. What happens if in the interim there are some specification changes, an industry-wide shift, or just, I'm referencing a project that we have in my neck of the woods, Fort Wayne, and so I'm just wondering, how does that work with these kinds of projects?
With these kind of projects, we have a setting date which sets the specifications for it. If we decide as an agency, as we're changing things in specifications, safety, other things change, we have the ability to incorporate it into the project. So we could incorporate it as a change order within it.
And then that is on the NDOT in terms of if there are extra costs associated with that?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Talion.
Thank you. After the I-69 problems that we had a lot of discussion in the State House about requiring greater performance bonds from these companies that are bidding these projects. Is that, and I don't believe that we actually passed legislation setting a number, but how is that fit in? Is that part of your scoring?
Actually, it's part of the documentation that we specify the amount that the performance bond will be. And as an agency, we are very concerned for that on these types of projects, and we are very specific in the amount. And it's based off of our prior experiences and what we expect for the project. So we have We have counsel on this that helps us to look at the nation and what would be the best number to use. And so we have set them much higher than I think we would have previously.
Okay, well, without asking you to tell me, a figure, you think that we've gotten to a point where they can actually cover
Correct.
problems if they
And basically what we were, as the decision was made, we were asked, NDOT that is what would it take at the worst time if the project wasn't able to be completed by the proposer? And we came up with a number accordingly.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Representative Hamilton.
Thank you. So my question is about the significant aesthetic and design improvements mentioned in the context of the significant community conversation that happened when the plan was originally announced. So what from the original sort of drawings to today has happened in that regard?
The context-sensitive solutions, you were right on your wording there, that's a very extensive process. As of this time, we have presented what we feel would be the best for the community. We have presented some alternatives, and they are still, we're still meeting with them to decide on what is the best way to go. So we have, what we've done is taken their ideas and some of the things that they feel are important for that area, and we are presenting them solutions. And we haven't reached the final stage, but we will be there within the next 3 to 4 months. So right now we have all these alternatives out there, and they are still presenting their thoughts, and we're trying to hone in on exactly what we should do with the project.
Thank you.
Representative Porter.
Thank you very much. As you go through that process, I think I wrote a letter early on this year, never got a response back from McGinnis, but it's typical. Could you make sure that legislators that represent that area are also involved in these meetings, other than neighborhood people calling us and coming on the tail end of it? Would you give that some real consideration?
Yes, sir, Representative. I apologize. Our committees and other things, I thought we have reached out, and I apologize if we have not, and we will open that up in the future.
So when is the next meeting?
I was afraid you were going to ask that, and I don't have that in hand. We do have them. We've had frequent meetings, and I will get that. I'll get that information to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Senator Taylor.
Yes. Is this RFP process part of the process that you're going to use to determine which strategy to which strategy will dictate the construction?
That's correct. At this time, they're going to specify their sequence and innovation and what they would, staying within the parameters that we have specified in the RFP. They will come up with their proposal, which includes their technical and their price, and then we have the ability to select any of the 3 proposers. And the proposers are listed in the information that are out right now.
Yeah, and and I thought when I read some of the information, quite frankly, I couldn't read the whole thing. But
it's pretty extensive.
Yes, but you're going to use this as part of the process to determine which strategy to address the community's issues with, for example, a wall going up across the street from people's houses, or expansion of the, we just had a construction. You're doing construction right now. It's on the radio. $90 million worth of NDOT money used to you're spending $90 million now. I hope we're not going to go back and take all that up and spend another $250 million.
I think part of your thoughts there, I think we are very concerned, and the way we write the technical provisions, walls and certain things are very specific, and the chance that they will change it is very unlikely, and that's just the way we write the information. So what I mean by that is certain things are very sensitive, and we are more descriptive in how we write the information. We're not allowing them to change everything. There are certain things they can change, but as far as the context-sensitive solutions and other things, we'll be more directive in what they will be able to do, if that makes sense, I guess. Because they can't come up with a proposal for the information, but they have to meet our scope.
Right.
And our scope is what your core information is.
Right, which is the wall.
Yes. And what the wall looks like and the height of the wall, all that information is very descriptive.
Right, which is what the community doesn't want.
Well, yes and no. There are areas where the community, and that's a process that's still ongoing also.
Okay, I just want to make
Yeah.
sure, I don't want to hold up this meeting for this discussion, but
Yeah.
the point I'm trying to make, Mr. Chairman, is that I don't have a problem approving the process. We're not approving a project. Just so we understand that, right?
Right.
We're just approving a process to pay for the chosen project.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, you have at your seat location, this is the IFA request to look at one or more agreements with the SWA authority and related to bonding and state revolving fund. And we have Mr. Swigert.
Mr. Seibert, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate your indulgence and consideration of this matter. Yes, we have 3 matters of the State Revolving Fund, CWA Group, City of Evansville, and the City of Fort Wayne, each of which is expected to exceed the 100 million threshold for repayment. We'd seek your review of those and approval of those matters.
And again, as stated, this is federal money that is...
That is correct. It's EPA money. I can't represent, it might also be WIFIA money, but certainly, yeah, it's federal money.
Okay. Senator Brown.
Thank you. Since I represent most of the city of Fort Wayne, could you explain to me what exactly is there? Is there an ask from the city of Fort Wayne, or is this a repayment of a already an existing revolving loan?
This will be loans made to the city of Fort Wayne for the projects. They're rather extensive. I'm not involved in the day-to-day involvement with those projects. I can get that information to you.
So this is a new ask that will commence in 2020?
I don't know that information.
Okay, can you get me that information,
Certainly,
please?
certainly, absolutely.
Exactly what they're asking for, what the bond rate's gonna be? or the
Absolutely.
loan? Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Certainly. There's another matter, the Community Foundation of Northwest Indiana. Is that also in your materials?
Yeah, it's the second.
Yes. Continue.
That's a conduit bond issuance for the Community Foundation of Northwest Indiana obligated group to cover a number of medical facilities in Northwest Indiana, not to exceed $180 million. Again, that's a conduit. The money will flow through the IFA to that entity. It's a refinancing of 2004A, 2006A and B, 2008 and 2012 bonds. But again, we'd seek your review of that matter as well.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've had an agenda placed before you and discussed. There are 3 reports you should have probably received electronically. Are there any motions for the agenda?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. We will be having a meeting in October, is that right? Have you guys all gotten emails related to when October's coming? 24th and 25th. We're going up to Northeast Indiana.
Welcome.
So be prepared for that. Any other questions of the chair at this time? We are adjourned.